Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Armada and could it potentially see a points adjustment, especially with the rise of some new things that we've seen lately in other games. I feel like Armada is a candidate and may be due for one. So before I jump too far into this, let me remind you guys, I do have a big giveaway going on right now for a $100 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video letting me know what your favorite capital ship is in the Star Wars universe. Or perhaps your least favorite. I'll give you the choice. But yeah, also I have a winner to announce for the latest Patreon giveaway. I'm going to do that one now at the beginning, as a matter of fact. So big congratulations to Max Tremblay. You are the winner of the Legion promos. So make sure you send me a message over on Patreon. Anybody else interested in supporting the channel, there are links to Patreon down in the description below, as well as my other social media accounts. All right, so lately, I've done a lot of Legion videos, and you know I tend to cover X-Wing, Armada, Legion, and a lot of other games. But yes, there have been a lot of Legion videos lately because the Clone Wars has just come out for Star Wars Legion. In addition to just the Clone Wars coming out, there has also been a card pack that has come out for Legion that has a whole bunch of cards that may not have been available to all factions. And so it's something that basically, if you're a single faction player, it's something that gets you caught up so you don't have to buy, expansions from across the aisle just to have an upgrade that came in them. Brilliant idea. So if you've been following me for a while, I'm 100% in favor of this idea because it's not just there for those single faction players, but it's also there if you play multiple factions. Maybe you didn't need a certain upgrade card, but maybe you wanted additional copies of another upgrade card. It's just a way for you to get, hey, I really wanted to run a whole bunch of linked targeting array and I only have one of them. Now you can get like a couple more in that pack. And I have said in the past that I think Armada would be a great candidate for that. I think Armada players kind of around the spectrum all typically agree that that would be a great option to get. But one thing that's interesting about it is that something else related to Legion that kind of leads me into maybe we'll see a pack like this for Armada, or maybe a pack with a little extra, is that we've seen some points adjustments to Star Wars Legion. And I'm not just talking about errata, because there has been some errata, and I think errata should be reprinted. But Legion has had a couple of points changes, and I think Armada is long overdue for some major, serious points adjustments. And I think that's something that we should see. So I kind of want to kind of take this like step by step and talking about like at the beginning of Armada. I feel like Fantasy Flight really overvalued certain things and costed certain things, based on certain presumptions that I think ended up not being as true or as valuable. The biggest thing being command tokens. Granted, command tokens are not terrible. I just feel like FFG, thought they were going to be way more important than they were. And as evidenced by Grand Moff Tarkin being a 38-point commander, is one of the most expensive commanders in the game. And his value is exceedingly small, especially in small ship lists. He's one thing to run him if you've got maybe 5 or 6 ships in a list, but then usually by that point you can't afford such an expensive commander anyway, so he tends to only fit into, 3 ship tops, lists generally. And at that point you really don't get much value out of him, whereas there are other commanders that do very, very similar things, including Garm Bel Iblis for the Rebels, for a much smaller amount of price, for only 25, which makes him among the cheaper commanders. And granted, they play differently, but they also do very, very similar things. So, like, here's 2 commanders that are, like, asymmetric that probably should cost much, like, the gap between their points should be much, much smaller, in my opinion. So that makes me think maybe it is time for Armada to get a points adjustment. And it wouldn't necessarily have to just focus on commanders. I think there's some ships that could probably use points adjustments too, maybe even a couple of upgrades. But and there's some upgrades that could probably be more expensive, like maybe Gunnery Team. As valuable and as crucial as it is, if it costed double, maybe you'd think twice before using it. Things like that. But I'm going to focus on talking about a couple more commanders that I think kind of highlight, because I think the commanders are the most egregious offenders of some of those points, adjustments just not being all that great. For example, one commander that's gotten extremely better over the years is Moff Jerjerrod. He started out as being a great commander anyway. Really, really good commander. Helps big and small fleets alike, and gives a fleet-wide benefit. Everybody gets this benefit. There is a little cost in that you have to take a damage, but you can put that to a shield, and it only costs 23 points. So very, very, very cheap for somebody who is filling a crucial weakness in many, many Imperial lists, as well as just working all around the clock. And his particular benefit is allowing you to not even have to rely on your command dial, which is exceedingly important. On top of that, he has grown more important over the years with the inclusion of the Super Star Destroyer, which has no yaw. He is exceptionally good with a Super Star Destroyer. So even a one-ship list, he works well with. And there's also new objectives now that are really going to punish people who are dependent upon command dials. New raid tokens, a lot of those things. Again, another commander that completely bypasses that entire requirement. Moff Jerjerrod is extremely good. And in my opinion, maybe should cost more than 23 points. Whereas, if we jump to like another commander who's not doing the exact same thing, but kind of doing something in the same ballpark in that they're affecting your entire fleet, but it also deals with command dials. So the idea is it's supposed to make you less reliable or less relying on commands, because now you're getting an extra token. It's a little different, but in the way it's kind of approaching something, it's that asymmetry. And, Leia isn't the symmetric, it's Maydeen who's more of the, more of the matchup, but Maydeen is reliant upon the command dial. So Leia's doing something that's much less useful, and that's just giving you a free commands token. That also restricts you, very similar to how Jerjerrod is going to cost you a shield, presumably. Leia is going to mean you can't do anything else with tokens. You're getting free token, but you can't do anything else with tokens. So she has a use, but at 38 points, that puts her up there with Tarkin as being one of the most expensive commanders in the game for a benefit that is, I could see her as maybe a 20-point commander. Maybe a little more than that, possibly, because there are some lists that can do moderately well with Leia. But, the fact is she's such a small pigeonhole, effectiveness that, in the benefit of getting a token with your command dial, I don't know if it's worth the detriment of not being able to use any other tokens at all during, so you can't, that versatility that those extra tokens give you, you're not allowed to use. So you're allowed to use it, but then you won't be able to, if you want to use Leia, then you can't. So, for 38 points, that doesn't make sense to me. And it's not just with the older commanders, too, even though Leia's kind of like a mid, she came out in the middle of the game's life cycle, or up to date. Even Emperor Palpatine, who just is one of our most recent, I guess technically our most recent commander, at 35 points, still puts him on the very high end of the spectrum. Now, he does something fleet-wide, and he's good, but at the same time, most lists where I want to use him, I could just run Intel Officer instead, and end up being much cheaper. And then I get to choose, because Palpatine, in practice, having tried to use him, doesn't really work out as good as I had kind of hoped he would work out, and he's just not all that great. He's not terrible, but I don't feel that he's worth 35 points in practice. I don't feel like he's worth 32 points. I feel like he should be, in the low to mid 20s as far as his point range. Now, this may change in the future once we have new defense tokens, and we have Salvo coming out pretty soon. So, this one is one that can probably go on the back burner. I'm not saying Palpatine needs to be changed today. It's just something I think we should keep our eye on. Maybe Salvo will bring him back up into 35-point range. Maybe he'll actually truly be worth it at that point. But then again, I have to ask the question, is he ever going to really be worth it, and not to take it, Intel Officer? It's a tough one because the officer slot is highly coveted, but Intel Officer is fairly cheap. Maybe Intel Officer needs to be raised up in cost. And if you're not familiar with Intel Officer, it's doing the same thing, but it's letting you choose which defense token each turn, and from each ship. So now, granted, a sweet spot once Salvo comes out may be to run Palpatine and Intel Officer on all your ships, and this way you can stop Salvo and brace. And then next turn, Palpatine goes for salvo instead of brace. Like maybe Palpatine goes for brace and then your intel officer goes for salvo. And then next turn, Palpatine goes for salvo and your intel officer goes for brace, and you're able to kind of layer them that way. That might be the sweet spot. Maybe that's something I'll try once Wave 8 ends up coming out. And, well, also, once we find out exactly how salvo works, it may not even be as good as we think. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty great, though. But then, somebody who's questionable like this, then you go back to Launch Wave, one of the best commanders in the entire game, General Dodonna, also the cheapest commander in the entire game. So I feel like, that's why I said I wanted to focus on commanders and talk about commanders in this particular video, because commanders, to me, have the biggest disparity on points versus value compared to at least where I think they should be. I would love to hear from you guys, though. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's one more thing that really got me thinking about this. With Wave 8, now they haven't done full Wave 8 previews yet. I think we'll get those pretty soon. But you've got Kirsta Agate, or Agate, I'm sorry. In the audiobook, I believe it was pronounced Agate. Kirsta Agate at only 20 points, and she is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. She goes on a ship. She makes that ship have an extra defense token of non-scatter of your choice. On top of that, you can guaranteed to always be able to spend one, regardless of what. If you just decide you want to discard one, you're going to get that effect. It's amazing. Kirsta Agate is really, really good, especially when you've got that one important flagship that can't die. She's wonderful. At only 20 points. She's going to work in every list because you're always going to have a flagship that you presumably want to survive. And 20 points is awfully cheap for such a cool new ability that's doing lots of useful things. So I think that's wonderful. Imagine her on like a Super Star Destroyer if you could. I think she'll be pretty good on a Starhawk as well. Or I'm thinking MC-30. They're like, I just can't wait for her to come out because I think she's going to be one of the most fun commanders to run. Conversely, you've got General Ramadi on the Imperial side, who is insane for so many reasons. But he's effectively giving all of your ships, almost, an extra attack die. Or possibly 2 extra attack dice. Possibly 2 extra attack dice for every ship. He's almost like the Akbar for the Empire, as long as you can make sure that that attack is obstructed. Because not only do you not lose a die, you also gain a die. And that's even better than 2 attack dice, because that means a shot that you might not have been able to take at all. So with Akbar, a shot that, a single red die in your left arc that you would have been able to add 2, but it's obstructed, so you have to remove 1. Now you don't have the shot to begin with. Ramadi will have those shots to begin with, on top of not losing the die and then adding an extra die. Absolutely magnificent commander if you can fly it right. Now this one is going to have a little bit of a skill cap that goes into it, and he may not always trigger, and I understand that. But for 20 points, somebody that's better than Akbar, at least in some, if you set it up right, I am blown away. And not just the 2 dice, but also the fact that you're not losing that one for obstruction, and that you'll be able to take those shots that you might not have had anyway. I think it's absolutely breathtaking, this guy. So the fact that there are 2 new commanders that have awesome new abilities are both only 20 points really leads me to believe that maybe we're going to see something happen in the vein of an upgrade card pack that Legion got. It might even have reprinted commanders with new point costs in them. But then again, they may not do that. It all really boils down on how they want to make the approach, because Legion took the approach with points adjustments, that those points adjustments were only for tournaments. For casual play, you could play with the points as printed. This way they didn't have to reprint everything. So they may not reprint those cards, although they will reprint errated cards. So anything that is a hard errata, that those are going to be reprinted. And so that could make it into an Armada upgrade card pack. But they may just say, all right, well, fleet builders, and let's have everybody just adjust in fleet builders. This is what the points actually cost now. However, just disregard the printed point cost on there. Only use that for like casual games. And of course, most games, people are just going to go with the tournament values, because a lot of casual games are in of themselves tournament practice. And that just becomes the standard play. But they want to keep the printed cost valuable and still, legit for somebody who just happens to buy the game, bring it home, and play it on their kitchen table, and never really explores the larger world of what the game is and what kind of FAQs and updates and changes that have been made to the game. So I guess Depends on which way they want to go. They could go lots of different ways, but I definitely hope to see an upgrade card pack. I hope to see some points adjustments. Hope to see a lot more news for Armada. We are supposed to be getting a live stream for Armada in November, so we're getting very, very close to that. FFG will probably announce live stream schedule and what games are being covered here pretty soon, and that's going to be exciting. So stay tuned for more Armada news. I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. You guys are amazing. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Check the links in the description for more fantastic stuff. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.